I guess so. It is currently 8 minutes away from the top of the hour. Rennie Bishop with you. It is nice of you to join us inside brunch. We are doing some speed trips here this morning. Let us continue. And every guest here is important because they're doing something towards what we know we must do. Find a way to live better. These are very stressful times. The strain shows an increased home tension, quarrels, domestic violence, and that affects not only the principals but the children and their communities by extension. My guest is an attorney-at-law, mediator, civil child rights advocate. She is Hazel Thompson, IE. We have had her here before. It is indeed a pleasure to have you back. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, Rennie B, and good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. It's good to be here again.
It is good to have you here. You have a seminar coming up that caught my attention. It's a restorative practice, and what that does is assist in building strong, healthy relationships. The ripple effect, of course, when we think in terms of what happens with the society, is that if you have a problem, one place is unresolved, it is going to ripple out, and it is going to affect people in a lot of ways. Let me ask you this morning to explain the basic principles of restorative practice. Whoa, I get my tongue all twisted up here. Restorative practice. Explain the principles involved here for me, please.
Well, the principle is based on the principles that emphasize the importance of positive relationships, which is central to building community and involve processes that restore relationships. So instead of breaking down, we're restoring. When a harm has occurred, we we look at how do we repair that harm. So instead of using the criminal justice system, which asks the question, what law has been broken? Restorative justice asks, what harm? Who has been harmed? And in what way? And how do we repair that harm? When we talk about restorative justice, we're talking about a subset of restorative practices. So we have the proactive approaches. This is before the harm has occurred, we build the relationship. And that's why you see it's so important that whatever environment you are in, whether you are in the school environment, you are in the community, you are in the workplace, that we build that relationship among the people, in our milieu. After you've had a problem now and there's been some wrongdoing, we can have the restorative justice conference. And in fact, that is when you bring together the offender or the wrongdoer, the person who has been harmed, and their communities of care. Those are the people, their significant others. And it's not a new system of justice, It is in fact a return to the old system that took place all over the world before we were colonized. So what people have realized, this criminal justice system isn't working. They've gone back to roots, where it first started with the indigenous people in all the continents of the world. You can trace the roots of this justice that we're trying to bring back. And it's all over the world now. When I go to conferences, we have one, the International Institute for Restorative Practices. There's a world conference. There are two now. Usually there's one in Pennsylvania. I go there every year. And there was one in Costa Rica. And there's going to be one in Ireland next year. And again, every year we have it in Pennsylvania. And people from all over the world gather and they talk about the successes of restorative justice. I remember last year, not last year, the year before, the new year now, there was a guy from Hungary and he began to talk about the change that has happened in his school, and he just broke down in tears because things were so bad. And when you hear what has happened in England, in Hull, there was a school deemed the worst school of all. Absolutely, the school was put in what you call special measures, and if the students didn't improve, they were going to close the school down. And a teacher was introduced, and she brought restorative practices there. And everything changed.
People speak of closure, when they're around. When the law addresses the perpetrator is the one that they deal with. It does not, however, address the mental scar occasion on the person. And I think part of the restorative process is going to have the person sit down and deal with the harm that they may not have been able to identify when it happened or even after they got their version of justice, because the harm is deep and they have to come to terms with that.
And it lingers. It lingers. So this process really brings healing to both the offender, the victim, and the community. Because when you are harmed, Rennie, it's not just you, your significant others are also going to be harmed. And even the perpetrators, sometimes the mothers, especially the fathers, they feel so ashamed. And it is that shame that they have brought on the family that affects them most of all. So in our training, which we start next Tuesday, we're looking at restorative practices, and we look at circles. Circles, that's a process where you have people sit around and look, and they bond together, because when you have a circle, there's no head. Everyone is equal in the circle. There is no barrier in between. Sometimes people say, well, why can't I have a table to write on? No, we don't want any barriers. And everyone gets an opportunity to speak. How has this affected me? And a number of schools are using it for the bullying process, because sometimes you don't know what is happening with a particular child, and it gives everybody an opportunity to speak and say what is happening. And I like to relate a story of a principal who received a phone call from a parent that his child was being bullied. And he said, no, not in my school, not in my school. And the parent said, yes, I can show you the scars and I can identify the person. And the principal decided, he was so shocked, he said, I'm going to call in this boy. And while he was waiting on the boy, he said, should I suspend him for a week or two, or what? What should I do with him? And then he said, but wait, I've heard about this restorative practices thing. Maybe I can try. And when he called the boy in, instead of saying, why did you do this? He said, you know why you're here? He said, well, for bullying. He said, tell me what happened. And this boy began to relate that when he was in primary school, he was bullied. And he decided when he went to secondary school, nobody's going to bully him. So he was bullying first. And when you ask the restorative question, because there are specific questions that we are taught to ask, what happened and what effect you think, is a series of questions. And he said, to repair the harm, perhaps I can apologize to him. And I can offer I want to take him out to lunch next week. When he called in the boy, and the boy spoke, the victim or the person who has been harmed, we prefer to use that term rather than victim, he began to say, well, how he felt, the fear of coming to school because he's going to be bullied again. And his mother is also being affected, and a number of people. And what would you like to see happen arising out of this conference? Well, I would like it to stop. And the boy offered, he apology right away. And he said, would you allow me to buy you lunch next week? And from that, they became friends. So you're building empathy by doing these things. Having the perpetrator or speak with the person wronged and seeing how it has affected, because many times people don't know the ripple effect of the harm that they've caused,
Indeed.
Until they actually hear it from the person.
The restorative process you're speaking about brings the perpetrator along with the victim together, a sort of truth and reconciliation that was tried by in South Africa, that basic concept. But there is a conflation, however, by most folks of revenge, punishment, and justice. Folks feel that if someone committed a crime against me, I need to see society exact on them punishment to deal with the pound of flesh. I want my pound of flesh coming back to me. How do you get folks to get past that need for revenge and punishment as against using this restorative process that you're talking about?
The thing about it is, at the end of the day, having gone through the process, the way the victims feel, the way the persons who have been harmed feel, it is so different. They feel that peace. They feel that sense of healing. And we have to go back to Mahatma Gandhi way back when, and he said, what Mahatma Gandhi says, an eye makes the whole world blind.
Everybody's blind, yes.
So that there are 93, Costa Rica instituted restorative practices and restorative justice in 2011. And they put their statistics at 93% satisfaction. I'm very excited. I only learned last night that Jamaica has put their new legislation in place. And they have started, all the courts are in Jamaica now. You have to look at it. When a child goes or adult goes on probation, when somebody is charged, when somebody, in fact, has been charged going through the process and has been convicted, before sentencing, you can actually be referred to restorative justice process. It's an
interesting concept that I think folks should look at. I just have a final question before you tell me about how they can, but better yet, tell me now, how can folks who may be interested in this restorative process, the whole practice, how then can they get involved with the workshop you have coming?
All right. Well, we start on Tuesday, and we're doing it where we first started in 2013 at the Aruka Pastoral Center. The Catholic Church in Aruka, they have a huge pastoral center. We want to make that a hub of justice there. where we have mediation as well. We used to run a legal aid clinic there. So we're doing that, and they can contact our offices by calling 223-8159, 223-8159, or also they can email us Epiphany Consultancy TNT, Epiphany Consultancy TNT @gmail.com. And later on in the month of February 10th and 11th, we have Restorative Leadership Development Authority with Grace. How can you in the workplace apply restorative practices principles, which in fact teach that human beings are happier, more cooperative and productive, and more likely to make positive changes in their behavior when those in positions of authority do things with them rather than to them or for them. So we want to change the whole culture, have fair process being practiced by employers, by politicians, by parents, and understanding your leadership style and how it affects those who you are supposed to lead.
Let's make sure we get out that telephone number. It's 223-8159. Hazel Thompson, IE. It is an interesting concept. As you said, Jamaica has seen the value of this. Many other countries have seen this as an important way to look at the very least, and implement in some instances, because, yes, clearly the system of this punishment is not working out too well for the society.
The cost of keeping one prisoner in jail, the Attorney General says in remand $25,000.
Yep.
You just send, and Costa Rica says $640 for restorative justice, $640 as opposed to $10,000.
Makes it very
for
clear.
a criminal justice process. So we're getting people out, we're helping the investment climate because we're building a more peaceful society, and we're making people believe that there is hope, because there's a sense of hopelessness, there's a sense of fear, and what it does is restore our confidence, our trust in human beings, and our ability to solve our problems ourselves, because we have built in ourselves what we need to decide how to repair the harm, and it gives the victim finally a voice. Victim is not just a part of the a cog in the wheel of the criminal justice system, playing a part what the prosecutor says, but actually saying, how does this affect me? How would I like to see that harm repaired? So call us 223-8159, and we see you there.
Hazel Thompson, IE, thank you so much for taking the time to come in with us this morning. You have yourself a wonderful day. Thank you. So good to see you again.